This review covers all the options and how they interconnect while questing to tame the legendary monster, the Griffin Matriarch. Greetings, everyone. I'm your host, Jay Voodoo Child. Please excuse the upfront teaser and the self-promotion segment, as I am a content creator trying to grow the channel. Subscribe and click the bell icon to be notified when I release new content. If this video was informative or entertaining, please consider giving it a thumbs up and share it with other communities while respecting their rules about cross-promotions. But outside of feeding the algorithm, your comments are very important. This channel is not just about my take on things. I wish it also to be a place for constructive conversations that will hopefully help the next viewer. Thank you all for watching, but enough of this. On with the show. Chapter 5, we are covering all the quest options going in reverse. So, last chapter, you can fight the Griffin immediately after this choice, and we have 4 selections. One is currently locked behind a choice that you could have made in Chapter 4 to gain Armas Poi to your expeditionary force. There are actually 2 choices in which you can get these units in order to unlock the first option. Send your men. So all 3 of the options that were available for not having the unlock give you this ability. It's a negative. I'm not sure how it affects things because it's not like any of the other stat boosts or what have you. It's just kind of a trait, I guess, that only get assigned to your Armas Poi units. And again, I don't know what the effect is. I would guess that there's a morale hit, but I have nothing to confirm that. Also, similarly, with this Griffin Gold, again, it's just a trait. It doesn't offer any stats that I can see. I would imagine if you chose this option of sending your men, your in the battle loot would change. Also, at the end of the battle, I generally click on the first option to send the to barter or exchange your captives for resources, because in the Griffin, that's a large chunk of gold. So I'm not sure whether this particular trait increases that. But the major thing is gaining the Griffin egg, and we'll see here. It's an item, and it has a 5% chance to hatch into a lesser Griffin. I'm guessing that this gets put into your special recruitment pool for later recruitment, so you can choose where it goes and when it comes out, because it has a 500 food upkeep, which is much higher than any of the other single units. I'm not sure whether you actually have to spend resources to put it in the field to recruit it, essentially like any other unit. I would imagine so. But this is a kind of a second way to get a lesser Griffin without building the buildings and going through that process. Also, I'm not exactly sure on whether this Griffin counts against the cap that exists with the buildings when you side with the Griffins, or when you build a Griffin nest or what have you. I forget what it's called. So I'm not sure whether this is inside or outside the cap, whether the one you get from battling the smaller faction that pops up, whether that counts against the cap, I don't know yet. So that is this particular option. Chapter 5, the choice for hold off and find good shooting positions. This is the choice that I typically make, given my particular army makeup. I like lots of range units to target the main boss. Once the boss falls, the battle ends. So hopefully I can just have some infantry holding the line and then have most of my range targeting and beating up on the boss. And hopefully staying out of range. So 30% reload skill and range for all missile units in the army. So, 3 times as much firing rate and increase in range. That's all good stuff there. Again, we have the uneasy armas poi. Again, I'm not sure what this does. Chapter 5, another option is hold off and look for good cover. And so we have at the ready, 20% missile resistance for all units, and 50% charge bonus for all units. This could be stacked with another 50% charge bonus made, I believe, in Chapter 1, one of the options there. And so this is an alternative army build that is not my particular play style, but having 100% charge bonuses, that's very powerful. The thing about the Griffin opponents, which are mostly armas poi, is that they all have spears. And so the large, damage versus large, and I don't think that there's like charge reflect in Troy as there is in Total War 3 Kingdoms, which I played a lot. But still, there is an animation that breaks when a unit thinks it's about to get charged. And so there might be some negative consequences to that just in general. And again, it's spears versus the centaurs, and which are typically like the horsemen, the cavalry type chariots and whatnot. Those are your typical charging units. So if you can engage a front line and then flank with chargers, you can quickly fold up because there's going to be a lot of damage, and I imagine a lot of morale hit if you get a flanking position. The issue with that is that, as you can see from the battle video that I've already made, the avenues that you are crossing the land to get to the boss are fairly narrow, and so getting flanks on it might be a little more difficult. You might have to put together a 1 or 2 unit front line, actually probably 2 or 3, just so it can survive an onslaught of their forces. And then as they're about to break, come in with the flanks at that point, because they'll be focusing on the nearest enemy to them, so they'll be concentrating against those 2 or 3 units. And then you can get flanking and rear charges and have all those morale hits and extra things and cycle charges, one after another, and just kind of flip-flopping them on both sides. Again, we have the uneasy arma poi. But another build that, other people may want to consider is a charging army. Again, even for that front line, you could have your regular melee and just focus on the higher charge bonuses, and maybe not necessarily defensive standpoint. So that's a consideration. Also, the 20% missile resistance, because typically chargers do not have shields, and so taking less damage from range, which is their kind of Achilles heel, if you will, that's a benefit. So keeps your troops a little bit longer into the fight and gives you time to start getting into the sides and rears, which is a very important thing for Troy. So if you did pick up some armas poi in Chapter 4, again, there are 2 options in which you gain units. You get this advantage. So 20% the battle speed for just those units, and 50% missile damage from just those units. And again, there are two different choices, and so the one that has four, I believe, have two of the charger units with no ammo. There's another kind of fast charger that does have some limited, like Histani type throwing. I forget how many rounds that they have, maybe up to three. But one of the units you get when choosing the major, having the Armor's Boy join you, as a javelin throwing horseback unit. So obviously, extra damage from those is important. But again, you're dealing with a small amount of units that you're giving bonuses. And so the charge bonuses were all units in your army, regardless of whether they're your faction units or units that you picked up along the way. Again, with the range and reload skills of the, find higher ground. Those are affecting all your units, in which, again, you have two ranged units that you can get out of having a Chapter 4 choice. So this particular option, I don't particularly go for, because it's a tough fight, and I want all those bonuses for as many units as I can get, particularly in my case for that range. But again, the charging one is going to be important for the army design around charging. This is just, there's nothing you can really get behind as far as, global bonus, if you will. Now, you will lose the uneasy. So you lost this one. And so you don't gain the uneasy Armor's Boise. Again, I don't know what that does, but that's one of the trade-offs. So this is unlocked if you choose one of the two options in Chapter 4. Okay, here we have the Chapter 4 choices. Two of them are locked behind previous choices. You do not have the slave gift in the expedition. You can gain this in Chapter 1. And also there's a choice in Chapter 2 to spend this. So obviously you could not have spent this in Chapter 2 in order for it to be available in Chapter 4. Ask them to help you. This is based on gaining the centaurs in Chapter 3. That's a choice there. And since we did not make this on this particular run, we have both of these locked here. So, skirt the Armor's Boy's lands. This, I believe, actually, let's just choose this.
My reputation grows.
So that's just a straight experience gain. I will double check on that. I believe it's not a lot. It's like 1 or 2 ranks, but I will confirm that. So yes, confirmed. It is 2 ranks of experience for all your existing units. And for me, it's just not worthwhile. There's no bonuses for the expeditionary army, and there are better choices in my opinion. So this is, I believe, the weakest of the choices. So one of the Chapter 4 choices that does not require a prerequisite is this choice: exchange weaponry for supplies. The major downside of it is you lose your weakest unit, but you do recover from all negative effects, and this would apply if you got one in Chapter 1, 2, and 3. You can get rid of all 3 of them if you made choices that had negative effects. And your units have restored some of their health. Now again, Chapter 1, 2, and 3 have choices that damages your expeditionary force. This choice in Chapter 4 will only reverse one of those, not all three, like this negative trait one. And you gain experience. I believe this is just one rank. And let me confirm that real quick. Yes, confirmed. It is only one rank of experience gained for all of your units. So that is your choice here. So if you chose to get the gift in Chapter 1 and you did not spend it in Chapter 2, you can now turn it in Chapter 4 for this effect. You will recover from a negative effect, and it says singular, but as far as I can tell, it covers all three negative effects from Chapter 1, 2, and 3. You restore some health. I believe, again, this is just one form of damage from either Chapter 1, 2, or 3. If you have multiple sources, it will only cure one of them. You pick up some Armas Poesy units, hunters and skirmishers. These are both the ones with range. The skirmishers are the horseback javelin throwers, and the hunters are foot-based with 5 ammo. I've confirmed that. And so, but you do lose your item, if you will, for an auxiliary, actually. And that's plus 15% morale for hero and for basically units within its ore and for the hero itself. And if you kept the gift throughout the entire quest, this stays with you for the game, I believe. So that's something to consider, that you're giving up a kind of a permanent item for units and the reduction of negative effects, which is fairly important for the upcoming battle, because I consider it very tough. Even on normal, I have issues with it, and basically, it's taken me several times to kind of come up with a game plan that I think is successful there, but still it's a tough fight. So holding on to a negative effect, particularly the fatigue one from Chapter 1, I mean, I can't imagine fighting that battle with all my units in exhaustion towards that middle fight that you're going up against dozens of Armas Poi units coming after you from two sides. So anyway, they're just trade-offs, choices that you can make. You can power game if you find that particular fight easy, even under kind of difficult circumstances. You can get a permanent item that affects the rest of your campaign. Again, in the Chapter 5, you get a chance to get the Griffin egg, which has 5% chance. So another item that could persist into the campaign. So you do have options here to hold on to some of these items. But in this case, you're trading away that item to recover damage and negative effects, wiping them clean from your. And then you pick up 2 range units. And for Chapter 5, you can choose the Amaspoi option, or you can choose the range option, depending on what you want to do there. So that's this choice. The last option in Chapter 4 is to basically use the centaurs that were a possible pickup in Chapter 3 to negotiate having 4 units of Armas Poi join you. And you get this routine, which is automatically lost in Chapter 5, no matter what choice you make. So basically, this is this kind of a story item, if you will. But you'll get 4 units. So along with the skirmishers and the hunters that you get from the other choice in Chapter 4, you'll pick up also 2 spearmen. And these are all around good chargers, no shields. They have a bronze upkeep, which I don't particularly care for, so I generally make this choice coming through my quest line, but I'll delete these 2 troops at the end to kind of get under the upkeep costs that are associated with having 2 full stacks plus, what have you going on. So that's the particular choices I make typically. So chapter 3, midway through your quest, and certainly I consider this the crossroads to what type of quests, what outcome you want to have. Now, basically, that's all set up in chapters 1 and 2, but certainly chapter 3 here is where you see the major forks going into the different directions. My favorite choice here is getting the centaurs. By making this choice with Approach the Centaur, you'll pick up 2 Elder Centaurs. Now that requires a level 5 city and a level 5 Centaur building, which you can only do in the cities and not in your provinces with your resources. So this is very hard to get the elders any other way, and to get 2 of them on turn 25 for the rest of the campaign, I really like this choice. So wait for the river to freeze. This is the one you should never do. It just gives you a negative effect. And basically, in order to get rid of that negative effect, you have to make a choice in chapter 4 that prevents you from doing other things. But also, when you pick up the centaurs, you do have the choice option unlock in chapter 4 to pick up 4 Amos Poi units. So if you're looking for units to come out of the expedition army when you're all done, this is certainly the way to go. Never choose this one. This is just a negative that you are forced to make another compromise in chapter 4 to get rid of this negative, or to have a tougher fight for what I consider the toughest fight already. Trader with the ship, I'll go into this last. This is a very interesting one. I'm not quite sure how it affects the final fight, but it has a super bonus. But before we get into that, look for a ford. This is only available if you made the scouting option in chapter 1. Now, for my thinking, if you make a choice that unlocks something later on, I want to use that unlock to have a payoff, if you will. And so if I choose something in chapter 1, I'm looking to automatically always use this. Now, the reason why you would want to do that is there are certain choices for the first 4 chapters that you can end up with an expeditionary force of just 8 units, because in chapter 4 you're going to get rid of some negative effects, but you lose a unit with that choice. We've already gone over that. So you'll have 8 of your 9 units all at rank 9, because when you look for a ford, you pick up 3 ranks here. You pick up 3 ranks in chapter 2 by making a choice, and you gain 2 ranks in chapter 1 for getting the scout, which unlocks this, and then getting rid of those negative effects and damages that you get in chapter 2. You'll end up with an extra rank to give you a rank of 9 for any of the choices in chapter 5. Also, scouting, I believe, actually it's scouting then fighting in chapter 2. Fighting in chapter 2 will give you the 50% bonus to charge, which you can add on to in chapter 5 with look for cover. Chapter 1, I believe, the scouting gives you the 20%, or actually maybe 30% missile resistance. Added that on to chapter 5 choices for looking for cover. You get 50% overall. So a very interesting selection or a path you can take if that's your thing. If you want level 9 units at turn 25, this is the way you would want to go. You basically want to scout in chapter 1, fight in chapter 2, look for a fort in chapter 3, and then I forget the name of it, but basically lose the unit and get healed up in chapter 4 and look for cover in chapter 5. So that just leaves us trade with a ship. And we'll go ahead and select this. All right, so you gain experience. Let me pause this real quick. All right, so you will gain 1 rank of experience here. You will take 1 damage hit to some of your units. I'm not sure which ones and where they will stack, but you will take some damage on 2 to 4 units, and they may stack with other damage effects that you've already taken. And the Trader's Warning, plus 50 to melee damage of all units against enemy mythic units. Now, what are enemy mythic units? I'm not quite sure. Certainly the Griffin Matriarch and the Lesser Griffins will apply for that. But does the general troops of the Amaspoi also be affected by plus 50% or plus 50 damage? Now, your typical units, let's see here. So your damage is 110, 160 now. For these chargers, 69, adding 40% damage there. Damage 74, so you're getting, extra 66% there. That's a significant boost to overall damage. So that's very interesting. I haven't played around with that and see what that affects and whatnot, mainly because I want those centaurs, but that's just my personal choice. This could be very interesting and very impactful for that battle. So maybe you can take on those negative effects and get some of those campaign items. This might offset some of those deficits that you're picking up with other choices. So something very interesting there. Again, I haven't played around with it, but could be monumental. So that is chapter 3. Chapter 2. This is the only chapter that has 3 options, and one of those is locked behind a choice, making a specific choice in chapter 1. So, of the 2 that are always available, you have accede to their demands, which basically you run away from this confrontation that you're having, or you fight them. So, running away will give you a negative trait and 1 level of experience. So, minus 15% morale on all units and increases fatigue. But you gain 1 rank of experience. Now, you can get rid of this in Chapter 4 through either of those 2 choices, one of which requires that you keep the gift, which you are obviously, which you can do here. If you choose this one, you're not spending the gift for that other choice. So you're saving it for Chapter 4 and can use it there to get rid of this effect. So in Chapter 2, challenging them, you'll lose some health here. I believe this affects 2 of your units. And you will gain experience of 3 and also gain show force, plus 20% morale and 50% charge bonus to all units. So again, if you are focusing on a charge army, this is the choice to make. You will take some damage, but that's generally okay. But you can select the charge option or find cover option in Chapter 5 to make that 50 into 100% charge bonuses and an extra 20% damage reduction, which you can stack on option in Chapter 1 for 30%. So, again, if you're going with a charge army, this is very good. I also tend to pick up this one typically because the loss in health is acceptable to me. Big gain of experience, and even 50% charge bonuses on my kind of main army that is also in the fight. And, 20% morale is good all around, particularly going up against these kind of stronger units that the Armapoi are going to throw at me. Another aspect about the damage choices for fighting in Chapter 2, in this particular case, my 4 strongest units got damaged. And another choice option, my 4 weakest units got damaged. I'm not sure whether the damage is assessed randomly or if your sequence of choices dictates which units get hit. I'm not sure about all that. I haven't played through that many permutations to kind of see a trending on who gets damaged on what options and whatnot. And also, take note of this flavor text in here. Now, fighting in Chapter 2 has a special bonus if you chose training in Chapter 1. You get a different flavor text, as you can read here. You get the same show of force effect that you would if you chose another option in Chapter 1. But you'll pick up these 2 units, and the 3 ranks of experience will drop on them as well as your other army. You still will take damage. So as you can see here, I have 4 units, damage still the same. And 2 of them, this one and this one, have stacked damage from Chapter 1. Because Chapter 1 training does damage. So 2 of your units are taking 2 hits, and 2 more are taking a single hit. In this particular case, it was all my last 3 armies, or my last 4 units, excuse me. So that's an interesting little wrinkle. Again, if you're looking to pick up extra units instead of experience or items, selecting training in Chapter 1 and fighting in Chapter 2 is your ideal result to picking up units. If you chose gift in Chapter 1, in Chapter 2, you'll have this option unlock, and you can give the gift back. So you will lose the item. You will gain 2 ranks of experience for all of your units, and you will get the well-fed, which are these battle things apply to the boss fight at the end of your questing. So 20% morale, 20% damage resistance of all units, fatigue reduction of all units, and 20 plus 20 melee attack for all melee. So this is a interesting, solid choice. I'm not a keen fan of it because you are sacrificing basically 40% of your options for just this bonus set. And, 2 ranks of experience, not 3, but you're not taking damage, but you're also not potentially picking up extra units, which I particularly like. So this one I'm not particularly keen on. I can definitely see an army built around this choice. And Chapter 3, picking up the centaurs. You are not taking any damage. You have not taken any negative effects. So Chapter 4, I forget what are the options there. I guess picking up the Armas Boy and then doing whatever you like. Probably doing the Armored's Poi unlock in Chapter 5 would probably be the way I would go for this particular chain of events. Not my particular favorite, but it may suit you, so something to consider. So, Chapter 1, this is where it all begins, and essentially, each of these choices, I believe, can lead you along to a path for an interesting army to fight the Griffin matriarch at the end of the quest. So let me talk about take provisions from neighboring tribes. If you select this one, you will get the exact same benefit as well fed from giving up the gift in Chapter 2. I don't think they call it well fed here, but you basically get the same stats to your army. The negative downside of it is you lose your weakest unit. So, if you want to optimize this particular choice, take this here. In Chapter 2, I would do a void to pick up a negative trait and to pick up 1 rank of experience. And then Chapter 3, I would pick up, the ship option, which damages some of your troops, but also gives you that plus 50 melee damage against mythical units. And then Chapter 4, you would select the exchange goods, which also you lose a second unit, but you get wiped out all of your negative traits, and you repair 1 damage, which you've only taken 1. That's probably the choice there. And then for the last choice, you don't have any Armapoi, so you don't have that unlocked. You can go for any of the other 3 options because the negative side of those choices don't affect you since you don't have those types of units in your army. That might interest you. It doesn't necessarily interest me, but that's just me. The one I do like is tactical training. This is the path you take if you just want to collect lots of units, which I particularly do. So by taking this, you gain some benefits, but you take some damage. And in Chapter 2, I would suggest fighting it out because you'll get those 2 extra units with synergy with this particular choice. You still take more damage. And in Chapter 3, I pick up the Centaurs, so more units. Chapter 4, pick up the Armor's Poi, even more units. And in Chapter 5, you can go with the Armor Poi selection since it's unlocked for you, or go for the option that best suits your army type, what you initially put into your expedition army. So that's the path I would recommend if you like units, and I do. Scouting ahead, as we discussed in Chapter 3, this is the choice you make if you want to have maximum ranks in your units, for 8 of them, 8 of the 9 selections. Scouting ahead, let's see here. I'm trying to remember all this stuff. One moment, let me pause it. So scouting ahead gives you 2 ranks of experience, a negative trait, and also 30% missile resistance. So Chapter 2 is fight it. You'll take damage. You'll gain 3 ranks of experience. And you'll have the 50% charge bonus and morale bonus. Chapter 3. Let's see here. is the Void. That'll give you 3 more ranks of experience there. And chapter 4, I would choose the Exchange Goods. You lose a unit, but you wipe out 1 damage and all your negative effects. And you'll have 1 of each of those. And you'll, so you clear up all that, but you lose a unit. And then for chapter 5, I would go for cover, get the extra 50% charge, another 20% missile resistance. So you'll have 8 units, all rank 9, 100% charge, 50% missile resistance, and 20% morale. That's an interesting army. So if you can win the battle for that, if that's your playstyle, I would recommend scouting ahead and using those selections going forward. Now, special gift, the last option here. You get the plus 15% morale for your hero and everyone within the aura of your hero. Now you can trade then that auxiliary in chapter 2 or 4. But if you are interested in getting campaign items that you can use for the rest of the campaign, I would select this now and not trade them in later on. So you retain that for the rest of your campaign. For chapter 2, I'm not really sure. What is the best route? I mean, I guess a Void. Does that give you a negative trait? I think it does. So I guess fight it out. You won't get the units, but you'll get 50% charge, some damage to your units, and 3 ranks of experience. Chapter 3, pick up the Centaurs. Chapter 4, pick up the Armor's Poi. And Chapter 5, pick up the Griffin egg that has a 5% chance of hatching every turn. And that way you'll get 2 items going forward for the rest of your campaign, provided you can survive the fight. But obviously you'll be skilled enough to take care of that. So those are my recommendations. I hope all this was informative and helpful for you in your planning. Please comment below your thoughts on this and what kind of styles do you like, and are there different combinations that you would choose given these selections. So thank you all for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye.